gave me that exposure to say like, hey, I can work on this. So once I started working on that, that led to so many difficulties. So you guys can literally just unmute yourself right now and ask me a question that you have in mind.
What tips would you give to someone who struggles to find like a dream job or something to do in the future?
I think the main thing just comes down to like experience, right? You gotta try things that maybe like you won't even like, but just try things. For example, you can literally just enter yourself into a competition that you like don't have much like good skills in. For example, like go to like code hackathon just for discomfort. And sometimes you find that when you're pursuing discomfort, things that make you like uncomfortable, then you find the things that are super cool in life. But I think it just comes down to experience, right? Just continually like read content, like follow podcasts or watch YouTube videos, and someday you'll like get inspired. But like, let's say you never find your dream job. You can train the mindsets in life to really do good work, right? For example, you can train stoicism, or this idea of like figuring things out along the way, or this mindset of gratitude for other people. As long as you train mindsets and habits, then you're able to create good work, right?
Christina?
Yes?
I have a question. So what do you do if like you can't find a friend that can like care about you or something?
Sorry?
Can you get your parents or something?
Can I get my parents right now?
No, I mean, no.
Oh.
If you can't find, if I can't find a friend that cares about my life or something, can I just get my parents instead?
Yeah, that totally works. Just find someone who cares a lot about you and your growth. Because your parents, like, their goal for you is for you to grow, right? And your goal is also for you to grow. So if those two goals align, then you're able to achieve great things together, right? What kind of technologies do you think have the most potential changing our everyday life in the future? Okay, I think this is just a combination of many different technologies, right? We have AI, we have blockchain, we have like gene editing. There's so many, but together, I think that's going to create the most impact. The one that I'm most focused on is space technologies, and following like Elon's sentiments and like goals in life, he wants to really create a multiplanetary system. And I think that's going to be a big change in life, because once you create this multiplanetary system, then you have access to so many different resources. And it's going to be a whole different life. Like imagine life on like Mars. You would have to figure out so many different things, right? How to adjust to different gravity environments, how to adjust to like the temperature changes and like wind currents of like Mars, right? We got another question here. Okay, so basically she's saying you can't follow a passion for your work if you don't have a career-related passion to follow. Okay, so what I was basically saying was that you gotta have things and like hobbies or things that you love to do in your life, and that's gonna enhance your work so much more, right? For example, if your career, your end goal is to be like a movie writer, like a screenwriter, and you have a background in like history or like a background in like a totally unrelated topic like engineering, that makes your work so much more interesting, right? Just because you love this thing in life, like just because you love engineering, your work is reflected with your interest, right? Your work reflects your interest, and that makes your work really interesting. Because if you look at all these different like successful people in life, they're pursuing ideas. They're not trying to please an institution, and the really impactful work that is created is because they notice something about life or something really interesting that has made their work so much more unique. Period asked us to give tips on achieving short-term goals. Right. So in order to achieve short-term goals, it comes down to mindsets as well. So if you have the mindsets to like a growth mindset or stoicism, but mindsets take quite some time. So let's say one important thing for me was writing daily updates. So every single day, I'd write down my goals that I want to achieve for that day. Also, I would write down like a reflection of like how I was feeling that day emotional wise. And I would write down my goals for the next day. And so this helped me to identify visually, but also like just identify in general to know what my goals are in life. And that is a short-term goal. So that helped me achieve those short-term goals. But is there like a more specific question to like achieving short-term goals? Like what's an example that you're thinking of right now? And then Jerry asked us, are you going, so like period, feel free to like do a follow-up question to short-term goals because I don't know what you have in mind. And then Jerry asked us, are you going to do genetic editing? That's an interesting question, Jerry. I don't think that is what interests me at the moment, but it is a potential in the future. Okay, do you ever think that it's too late to use the advice? I really don't think it's ever too late. Like, this is such a cliche thing, but I'm pretty young, so I don't have much perspective on that, but basically, I think some of you guys got confused with what I was saying, and it was basically saying that, hey, like, you gotta love life first, or like, not love life first, but like, you gotta find something interesting, and that makes your work really unique, right? Jerry asked me what's my hobby and who's my favorite inventor and why. So my favorite hobby, or just in general, I love art, right? You guys can see this with my wall back here. So much art. I do this in my free time. Like, no one asks me to do it. I just do it because I love to do it, right? And my favorite inventor, like, this is a classic, but like Elon Musk, right? Just like search him up right now. And he literally, what's interesting about him is that he embraces risk. So he's very unconventional with the way that he thinks. And that is super important because he's able to create this risk and unconventionality, he's able to push change, right? For example, his dream to go to Mars, like, people literally laughed at him when he proposed it, but now, like, they launched like a rocket the other day into like space, and that was because of his dreams and aspirations and just willingness to risk. And the thing about him taking risks is literally very controversial to some people, right? Some people think what he's doing is very stupid. Like, look at Neuralink. It's controversial. And this goes back to this idea of like following your passions is also controversial to some of you guys. But at the end of the day, you have to be willing to take that risk. And because the purpose, for me, I define the purpose of life as more than just like pleasing an institution like school or something like that. So Brianna asked also, what inspired you to develop a passion for learning and create your love for what you do now? That's a very interesting question. I think I've always just, so I used to be a very quiet kid, very shy, and I'd just like sit in like the back of the class or just like observe the things that are going on in life. And this was because of a reason, right? I used to go to school in China, and when I came back to Canada, I couldn't speak English. And so I was quiet because I didn't have the confidence to speak good English, but also I just didn't understand what people were saying. And
Yeah, you're in the same case as me.
yeah, your English is pretty good though. But basically that made me the quiet kid. That made me the kid that was like observing. And just from these observations, that gave me time to think. And this within itself is such an advantage for me, because once you're able to observe and like know yourself better and have self-awareness and that time to think, then that leads you to like better conclusions, like better actions for you to really go like that leads you to do cool things, right? Like I could be doodling in my sketchbook what I was thinking that day, just because I had that self-awareness and that advantage of thinking by myself. I hope that answers your question. But like a tangible thing for you could be just leaving like 30 minutes to your day for a walk, or just like journaling with yourself and knowing yourself better, because as humans, we like have a lot of awesome ideas. We just sometimes don't pursue it. But let's say like, oh, my voice cracked. But let's say you can't pursue those, like you don't have the creativity to pursue like passions. Then literally just like surround yourself with awesome content like YouTube or podcasts to learn what other people are doing in their life. But these podcasts are about very successful people, right? And so if you're able to hear the advice of successful people just by like doing your chores or something like that, that like artificial environment itself gives you so many more ideas, and like it also gives you the confidence to do things, because now you know that your potential is so much bigger than just like writing an essay in school, right? And Sejal asked a cool question. He asked us, what are mindsets? Do you want to unmute yourself and tell us what you think my mindsets are, Sejal? If not, I can go on. But we can have a discussion about what mindsets are.
Mindsets like what you do when you meet a challenge or something.
Yeah. It's basically like how you view the world. Like you have this structure of how like information is processed in your mind, and mindsets kind of really move you towards making a good conclusion, right? Let's say you have this mindset of like stoicism. You can't control what your external factors are, but you can control what you do.
It's the growth and fixed mindset thing, right?
Kind of. This one is more about like, hey, like you can't control external factors, you can control yourself. You can do like, it's basically just taking responsibility of your life. So let's say something like that, this is a stoicism mindset. And let's say something bad happens to you. When you have this mindset, then information is processed in your mind through a very specific way for you to make the conclusion to say, hey, I have control of my life, and I don't, the external factors don't matter as much because I can control me. And it's just basically like, I think of mindsets as just a structure for data to go through to make a cool conclusion, right? And then Julia asked us, how can you stop surrounding yourself with people who bring down your mindsets? So right now, the first thing that comes to my mind is probably like school. Like, I think many in that environment of school, people don't know what their potential is, right? They don't know that they could literally just be researching nanotechnology just because they find it cool. Probably some of them don't even know what nanotechnology is. And if you were to really, so Julia asked us, like, how do you stop yourself with people that bring down your mindsets? So I think it goes back to my point about creating an environment, a different environment. So the first thing is you can physically change your environment. I go to the Knowledge Society, which is this cool program that exposes kids to like emerging technologies, allows you to meet cool people. And this environment totally changed my mindset, right? I was surrounded with people who knew about the potential about themselves, and basically what the, like, basically brought more exposure to me, right? And so that is like a physical change. You can apply to programs that you think align with your vision. Or you could train yourself to go to get a job at this company that shares the same vision with you, right? But if you can't change your physical environment, you can always change your artificial environment. You can change what you read online, right? I literally deleted Instagram for 2 months because I felt like that environment was like toxic to my mind, and like how I was thinking and the things I was prioritizing was wrong. That is a change in an artificial environment. I can change the amount of TikToks I see in a day. That I literally can change, right? I can change like the YouTube content that I watch to educational videos that I actually find super cool. So sometimes if you can't change your physical environment, the internet is your go-to. Okay, awesome.
So Christina, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You talked about this
Yeah.
knowledge society, and it changes your mindset a
Mhm.
lot. So what do you do there? What's the best, thing you've gained from there? Could you please share with us some of your experience there?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely met a lot of cool people there. It says my internet connection's unstable. Is it better now? Hello? If someone can confirm that they can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I can hear you.
Yes, we can all hear
We
you.
can hear you. We
yeah.
can hear you.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys. So it changed my environment, right? I met some of my best friends there. Like, for example, like Sujal's on this call, Sarah's on this call. These are the people that genuinely cared about my growth. They were the people that also realized potential in their life for them to create impact in their life. For example, like Sujal's super interested in AI. He just pursues that because he loves doing that. And so if you are in an environment where other people feel that way too, then that's going to push you. But another thing that it exposed me to was it brought a lot of discomfort and challenges to me. I remember during some sessions, like for TKS, we have like an online session or just like you meet in person, like before quarantine, and talk about cool emerging technologies. I remember my first session, I was super afraid to talk because I thought to myself, I'm in a room with so many smart people. Like, I don't think I'm that smart. And throughout the year, I made it my goal to be able to really like contribute without being scared. And so this meant that like I would literally like raise my hand and talk, even if I was super nervous. Like other people can tell that I was nervous, but this was a challenge for me, and I was going to overcome it. And it is exposed, and TKS has exposed me to many different problems that I can overcome. Right. Right now, I create a lot of YouTube videos and I write articles and reach out to different professionals in the space technology field, and I just ask them questions I am interested in. And this was like very discomforting to me in the beginning, but now it's not as scary anymore because I'm able to overcome these problems. So if you were to take one insight from this, is that sometimes you got to create problems for yourself to really solve and improve your life and create that area of growth. And you can do this through like discomfort challenges. For example, my friend and I had this discomfort challenge that was like, hey, like go up to like 4 strangers and just like talk to them. This was before quarantine, by the way. But basically, this was a discomfort for me because I'm kind of shy sometimes and I don't like to talk to people. But after doing this, I gain more exposure, more experiences to realize it's not that big of a deal. Or I have this other discomfort challenge where someone said, hey, just post an ugly picture of you on Instagram. That happened and no one literally cared. Like, it's not a big deal. Or there's other discomfort challenges where I literally went on stage and just started playing piano to like my whole grade and like another school. And these are all things that you can do to really, these are all things that you can do to gain more experiences and data points about the potential you have, but also just overcoming your fears, because they really aren't big risks. They're just perceived. Sarah just put
Chris,
down, yeah?
are you going to answer somebody's question, or can I ask a
Yeah.
question?
I think I'm gonna answer a question.
Sure.
But
Go
wait,
ahead.
Sarah just put down the website that I have for Naroka. It's a project that I've been really passionate about, and it actually won the TKS hackathon as first place. You guys can check it out. I just linked it in the comments. But one important thing to note about this website is that I made the art, and that made the user experience like more unique and authentic. And that was because I just genuinely love to do art, and that is reflected in my work. And that makes my work so much more unique. And so you don't necessarily have to like relentlessly pursue a passion as an artist. You don't have to necessarily like be a starving artist, but you can pursue things that genuinely like bring you joy and read content and books that you love, and that is reflected in your work to make you a unique person, right? So unique experiences build unique people, essentially. And then we got another question, I think. Sorry. Just like going through these. By the way, you guys can literally just unmute yourselves and just ask me a question. So we have one from Lena. How do you keep up with a goal even if it's too difficult? Okay, so this comes down to discipline and resilience. I don't know if you guys have read my article about debate. I can link it over here. I'll link it in the chat. But basically, it was an article about my love of failure. And the first time of me debating, I literally cried. And then the first debate competition that I've been to, I came in like one of the last place. And that didn't stop me from pursuing debate, because I love being put on the spot, right? I love to challenge myself analytically, like how do you think about this one idea differently? And just like debating itself is fun for me. So that goes back to this hypothesis that like if you really want to do something and that overpowers your insecurities or the challenges that you face, then you will keep on pursuing it. So it goes back to resiliency. But another thing when I'm talking about this, just popped in my head, was the people around you. Like I have like a good support system where I'm able to go to some of my friends for advice or help and tell them about the things that I'm struggling with. And they're able to like use my logic and go through and tell me, hey, like what you're doing doesn't make sense, or you can be spending your time on so many cool things. And that environment basically helps me to keep on going and having that support system. But let's say you don't have that, literally just go back to the internet and like look for like inspiration and success stories. But I know that sometimes that's a very like disconnect, because like someone who's been like clearly like someone on the internet can't give you personal advice about how to live your life. And so then it just goes back to like desire to want to do things, and maybe like even a fear like pushing you to go forward. A fear of mine is fear of being average. Like I don't want to die not doing anything in my life. And so that pushes me to keep on relentlessly going for my goal. So maybe you don't have a desire in life, you can establish like a fear in your life. Okay, so let's say there's like a lion running, like there's a lion chasing you. You're gonna run way faster if that lion's chasing you versus if you had a carrot in front of you and you wanted to get that carrot. So sometimes it doesn't even have to be like your desire to want to do things to push you to do things, but it also comes down to your fears that can push you to do things. So, okay, awesome.
When a lion is chasing you and you run faster, it's called an adrenaline rush.
Okay, that's awesome, Jerry. Thank you. So Ping just asked us, how do you keep yourself from procrastinating non-urgent goals? Yeah, this is such a great question. Definitely this goes back to like falling back on your habits and your work ethic. And so one of the things that I do is, I already told you guys this, like just set goals, and I'm able to identify and see it. And then how I basically work is I do small task, big task, small task, big task. And that could be, I'm working on this big project for like, let's say like 3 hours. And then a small task would be like writing a friend, like, hey, like you mean a lot to me, or like going on a bike ride. That's a small task that I can take a break from my big task. But all of this is very situational, and it's dependent on how you work. So you can try a bunch of different things, but when it comes down to it, like you gotta try it and know what works for you. And so the things that are non-urgent goals, the tricky part is like no one's really telling you to do them. Like the important non-urgent goals, right? So basically that just goes back to like creating accountability, but also being self-aware and keeping in check of like what you really want at the end of the day. A constant reminder, right? But a big thing about non-urgent goals is that it's so chunky that you don't know how to get started. So how you get started, how you get started is to literally break it down into small tasks. And if you're able to break it down into small tasks you can do to achieve your big task of something that's non-urgent, then good for you, right? Like you're able to create those baby steps. But another thing for me is that I have visuals all over my room to remind me of how urgent something is, right? On my wall, like you guys can't see this right now, but it has like quotes that I find inspiring. Some of you guys find this like weird, right? Like quotes don't really inspire some of you guys, but to me, it's just a reminder to myself to do things, right? Like I have one that says you have more control over you than you'd actually think. And so that's referring to procrastination. And so the moment I look up for my work, I see that quote, and that reminds myself that, hey, like this is really important to your goals in life. But another way that you can approach this is to really visualize and create this life plan, because now you start to suddenly realize that your non-urgent goals become an urgent goal, right? You don't want to die like not achieving the goals that you actually want to do in life or the cool things that you want to do. And so once you realize that these non-urgent goals are urgent to you and are very important, then that also is a motivational factor for you to not procrastinate. So it's that personally like internalizing it, but there's also aspects of like creating a structure for you to lean back on and to really like not procrastinate, such as like those quotes, right? Yeah. Awesome. And I think I have a few more questions. So someone asked me, is there any time management strategies you're willing to share? Yeah, awesome. So I actually have such thing called a daily update. A lot of my friends do this as well. And we literally just write our goals down, and I can show you a version of one of my daily updates. Here, I'm just pulling that up right now. Okay, so let me share my screen with you. Can you guys see my screen? Yeah? But can someone like use a, yeah? Okay,
Yep.
Awesome.
You can see it.
So these are like literally every day. So yeah, so this is a time block of, so this is called breaking down your task. I forgot the actual term for it. Time blocking. Yeah, that's the term. Time blocking. So during quarantine, I didn't want to waste time. So I literally wrote down my goals and then I time blocked it. I intentionally put down all the things that I want to do that day and block it into times. I even put down some like breaks. For example, like over here, it shows reflection from 6 to 7 p.m. That literally just means like going on a walk or writing in your journal or reading for fun. And so time blocking can be useful for some of you, but I don't know if it's for like all of you. It's none of this advice is like universal, right? You guys have like, it's on a scale of like how much it works for you. So some advice might be more productive for you and some might not. It all comes down to you trying and going and trying it out. So this was 1 week. I set goals and I put them in buckets, right? For school, these are all the things I have to get done, and I was able to get them done. Or here's like, I was interested in space tech and I really wanted to do it. So I have that over there. Or I was working on Naroka, that company, and I have a bunch of small tasks that I want to achieve, and it all goes down into buckets. And I hope that was useful to you. I'm trying to find like one that has more beef in it. Okay, that is just reflection. Sorry, give me a second.
I have a question on this.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of application are you using for all of these like buckets and checking?
Mm-hmm. This is called Notion. But even if you don't have Notion, you can literally just use a journal. But are you asking like buckets, like as in like school buckets or like Naroka buckets? Like,
I mean, like what you use to do all of these and like set your goals and put it, and then you can like check mark it when you're done.
oh, like the app that I'm using?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's called Notion. So I'll just write it here. But
Oh, okay.
the important thing isn't the app. Like it could be like even a journal or something like that. Let's look at February. So we have, okay, that's not. Okay, yeah, so here's like a big task for me. So I had to write this essay and I only had like a day to write it. And I like literally procrastinated on it. Like I literally had to do like a lot of research for it, but I left it for a day to do. And so what I did was I just broke it down into like tangible, small baby tasks that I can do. And that allowed me to really go through it really well. And so I think like baby steps really encourage me to really get the big things done, because now you just see it as a small task rather than something that's that daunting. Right? Yeah, I think that's it for now. This is a gratitude for some of my friends. It's very important to train like gratitude and love for your friends. Sarah asked me, how do you approach a big task when it's super hard? I think I just answered this question, but if you have a follow-up question to that, you can definitely like put it down below.
So Christina?
Yeah?
Can I ask a question now?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, sure. Like you said, you used to be a shy and quiet kid. So, but now you reach out to those professionals.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you literally do that? Like you write emails to them and you go to conferences. And
Yeah.
how do you approach those, scientists, the grown-ups? How do you approach them? How do you do your self-introduction? Like how do you literally do that?
Yeah, for
I
sure.
understand this interaction actually led to your science proposal recently you just submitted. So could you please tell us about this?
Yeah, for sure. I think I was a shy person. I was also a pretty insecure person. I felt like people would think I was stupid if I walked up to them and like just introduced myself. But now when I go to conferences, I'm the one approaching people and saying, "Hey, my name's Christina. I'm super like excited about space technologies." And like I'd like love to connect with you on LinkedIn or just like talk about your work right now. And that just came from like discomfort in the beginning. Like everyone probably the first time doing it, they feel discomfort, reaching out to people, asking for help, being extroverted, and like just discomfort in general. But if you're able to pursue that and just like keep on going, like you're able to achieve a time frame, like you're able to achieve this time where, hey, like it's not discomforting anymore. Because what really creates discomfort is like uncertainty, not knowing how to really uncertainty in general, and also this idea of like risk, right? Like it's perceived risk versus actual risk. What is the risk of me reaching out to this professional in a field? Not much, right? Like if they don't respond, okay, cool. But the good situation is like if they do respond, then I meet someone super cool. I get to talk to them about their work and learn about something I wouldn't find on the internet, right? And it's this idea of like best case scenario versus worst case scenario. The best case scenario of talking to the best case scenario of talking to a professional is literally like you get all this cool advice and new knowledge. The worst case scenario is that they say no, you don't talk to them ever again. But if you were never ever to reach out to them, you're still living in the worst case scenario. So there's actually not much to lose. So it's like A, embracing discomfort, but also B, just literally thinking this through and being like, there's not much to lose. Even if there's not much to lose, so I'm just going to do it. And there's more like that you gain out of pursuing discomfort than like what you don't gain, right?
So far, how do people respond? Do most people respond positively?
Yeah, for sure. Most people do respond positively, and they respond to my emails or LinkedIn messages. This March break, I went to Harvard to debate, and I took this as an opportunity to go around Harvard and literally find their science department and just ask them questions and just like talk to them. And worst case scenario, they would be like, who's she? Like, I don't want to talk to you. But best case scenario, they talked to me, and that's actually what happened. We were able to talk about all this cool science tech, and I now have like this cool connection and experience of like discomfort, but also cool knowledge.
Wow, good for you.
Thank you.
What's the best advice did you get there at Harvard?
I think it's just like knowing that people like are working on cool things. No, sorry, not that. I mean, that is one part of it, but I wouldn't say it's like the biggest. One of the personal advice that they gave me was like, you're super interested in space technologies, but you're worrying about your technical skills. I was worried like that I didn't have like university knowledge to really be in the space tech industry. But what they told me was like, hey, like we're still figuring out our life. Like we're in university, and Harvard gives us that flexibility to learn about like what we really want to do with life. And they told me like, as long as you have that interest, then you can do so many like cool things, right? Like the thing that they struggle with is finding their interest. So if you already have this interest, then you're already like one step ahead of the game, because of my hypothesis that's like if you like really want to do something, you will get to do that. And going back to this like question of like, but what if I don't have a passion? Then literally just expose yourself to cool things that people are working on, and now you have like more data points and knowledge about what you can be working on, because sometimes we don't even know something that doesn't even exist, and that could be super helpful to us, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how did you make that science proposal?
Oh, that science proposal?
Mm-hmm.
How did I make it?
Like you reached out to some professional,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it gave you some inspiration, or?
Yeah. So that came from just networking and connections. So I was talking to someone working at Possum 13, and that's where I submitted my research proposal, by the way. And I was talking to her about my interest in space technologies, and I just wanted her advice on how to be a part of this industry. And she told me, like, hey, you seem super interested. There's actually this opportunity for high schoolers to submit a science proposal. So that gave me that exposure to say, like, hey, I can work on this. So once I started working on that, that led to so many difficulties. Like, I had to read research papers that were like university level, like I can't understand and comprehend. It was all about biology. And if you guys know like uni bio, that content is really hard. And it has a lot of terms that you gotta like know before you even read it. But how I approached it was just like going back to this mindset thing and my work ethic, and just like, I'm going to plan this out and I'm just going to tackle it with small tasks. And so what I did with that research paper was I looked up every single bio term that I did not know, and then just wrote like a sticky note next to it explaining what it is. I had to like understand all the terms for me to really understand that research paper to write about my science proposal. But that's when I reached out to another professional and told her about my proposal. And she was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, hey, like you're researching like bone density and how that's impacted in different gravity environments. But the experiment that will be conducted is only short term, and bone density is impacted long term. And so the research that you would be doing is actually useless. And so all this time that I spent on researching a topic that was going to be in my proposal, I realized like last second, like this actually doesn't work. And so I was a bit frustrated with that, but we kept on talking, and it led to some joke of me saying like, what if we sent a pregnant mouse into space? And then it was like a couple of laughs, and then we realized that, hey, like this might actually be a thing. We did a few, like after that call, I researched how pregnancy is impacted in different gravity environments, and there's very minimal research to that. And so that's what I wrote my proposal on. And this is super important for like sustainable space travel, right? Like if you want to go to Mars, but you can't like reproduce on Mars, like what's the point of settling there if you can't create like long-term settlement? And so that's what I wrote my research paper on, and I submitted it, and it was quite the journey, right? But I think this does two things. One, it tells you the value of like networking and just talking to people that are working on things that they're passionate about, because eventually you are able to come up with these cool ideas that I had. And it's all like a journey and process. Like you don't have to like know things before calling them, because when you call them, that's when you learn things from them and you're able to reiterate and try new things and try new ideas. Like you don't have to be perfect to like ask someone for help, right? The purpose of asking them for help is because you need help. Same idea with like going to a gym. Like let's say like you don't like your physique, and like why would you not go to like a gym if you like if you, yeah, that example like kind of follows. But basically it does that one thing of like there's no downside in reaching out and just exposing yourself to different opportunities. But there's also this other side of like just you gotta keep on embracing the challenges that come your way. Like when I heard that I had to read this research paper, first I was frustrated, and then second I was like, okay, wait, awesome, like I get this challenge. Like imagine like after achieving this challenge, like how they all feel. And so that's basically what happened. You get those two things. And actually, I want to go back and tell you guys why I started this research paper in the first place. I started because like I didn't know anything about it. And I have never wrote a science proposal in my life before. And I wanted to try something out. And I thought this was a great opportunity as a challenge. And I think that's an advantage that I have, that is like just embracing failure or embracing discomfort, that many of you guys can also train at the same time. Just literally think of something you don't want to do and then do it. But of course, like recognize like the risk in it. But a lot of times, like as I've already mentioned, a lot of it is like perceived risk, right? But basically, yeah, I'd say that is the journey of my science proposal. Is there any more questions? Someone asked me, how do you balance multitasking? Well, okay, so multitasking wise, could you give me an example of like when you multitask? Like, okay, so the one thing that I can think of when it comes to multitasking is sometimes I would call my friend as I do work, but that's only the tasks that my brain can like handle, right? If it really comes down to like learning time, then I need to get all distractions out. So there's a difference between like how much focus you need. Oh, sorry, I misinterpreted the question. So she followed up and said, if you have 2 or 3 projects come together, and so there's like a lot of priorities on your plate. So this is a great question. And I think the first thing is literally just writing down everything that you have and the small baby steps that you have to do to achieve those big goals. And then you can write the time frame that it takes for you to achieve those small goals. Like for example, if I were to say, write about what the mitochondria is, 20 minutes. And then from there, now you literally know exactly what you need to do with the specific time for that one task. Do this for like 3 of your projects, and then break down these small tasks and put them into your agenda or a specific day that you have to get them done, and literally just time block it. Like I showed you guys, just go on like Google Calendar or something and like visualize how you can like spend the time by the minute. And the point of this isn't necessarily to micromanage your day, but it is for you to realize that you can actually get it done if you use your time effectively. And so you have to like internalize that, like, if I spend my time wisely, I can get this done. And so that's a useful thing to do for you to stop procrastinating, because once you start realizing that I can like actually do it, then you'll be able to do it. But the thing about having like 3 big projects at a time is that you also have to prioritize, right? Like, let's say there's this like one big project that you're very passionate about and the other 2 are kind of dragging you down. Then you probably should drop one of those projects, right? And focus on one big project. And what I mean by this is, let me give you an example. In grade 9, I had a lot of extracurriculars, a lot of clubs I was a part of. But then this year, I really boiled it down to like 2 things. 1, the Knowledge Society. 2, debating. And if I'm able to spend a lot of like time specifically to these tasks, rather than like splitting that time in a lot of small tasks that I actually don't care about, then the quality of work is so much better. And the trick with this is that, like, hey, like, just do the projects that you actually like doing. And those projects are probably like 1 or 2. You probably won't be multitasking that much and juggling so many projects. But I know this isn't always the case. For example, like school, when you have like all these different subjects and projects you have to get done. And that just goes back to like what I said about managing your time wisely with like time blocking and whatnot. Jerry asked, what do you do when you're stressed? I think that says stressed, right? Okay. So this is a very good question, because I used to get panic attacks when I had exams last year, but now I don't get them anymore, because that was a mindset change. I realized that like that grades don't matter at the end of the day. Like, it is important, but it's not the biggest factor, and all be all thing. And so when it comes down to stress, you have to identify, like, is this stress really like important or not? Because we as humans are programmed with like evolution, right? Like it's like, if you feel like scared, right? Like, let's say like someone scares you, you get scared or like stressed because that's like just your existential like instincts just kicking in from evolution, when like you had to like hide from like threats, right? But nowadays, when you get stressed, this isn't threatening your life, right? And you start to realize that sometimes the things that make you stressed aren't actually that important. And so that's one factor. But let's say, going back, that's one factor. And you really got to like go line by line analysis of seeing like, does this actually make sense to stress over this? Like, what's the utility of being stressed? Like, I have 50 minutes to study for this test. I stress for 20 minutes. The line of logic to stress with 20 minutes does not make sense to me. So I'm not going to stress for that right now. That is when my mind is thinking logic, and I can sometimes convince myself to think that way. But what if I can't get out of this self-rationalizing? What if I can't seem to like convince myself that this doesn't matter to be stressed over? Then I go back to a structure and falling back on that structure. So that is a part of habit building. So the structure that I have in my life is I have a lot of habits. I work out 6 times a week. I meditate like 2 times a week. I should probably meditate more. And I read like an article a day. These are habits I go back to. And the 2 important things are working out and meditating. These things make me less stressed and relieve stress. And those are things that you guys can definitely try out. And I think that answers your question. And it is almost 9:30. So what do you want to do, Linka? Or...
Yeah, we'll probably need to wrap up.
Yeah, okay.
I really love like you make fun of boredom or stress with art. That's very creative way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is another factor as well, right? Like, art literally is my therapy sometimes, or like just journaling. I'm just gonna link my YouTube in the channel, or I can link like my LinkedIn if you guys would like that to stay connected with me. I really appreciated presenting or just answering your questions today and being able to interact with you guys.
Thank you very much, because I know you're a super busy young lady. So thank you so much for taking the time come over to share with us.
No, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Sure. And I want to thank our audience for coming, taking your time to enjoy this evening together with us.